I don't normally come on at night, but do a stream. But I just felt like it. It's what I'd be doing anyways. I normally, you know, my wife is ready to tuck into bed and fall asleep, and I'm down here sitting in the studio for a little bit more before I go up to bed. And so I thought, oh, I'll just plan a thing tonight because we've been going to bed early and we stayed up late. So plan for whatever you want. Anyways, but okay. So this is a page that I was doing earlier today, and what it is a suggestion, and the suggestion is a village meeting gone wrong. Is the suggestion I was given, and which is a fun one. So I've got the whole image drawn, and like I drew the whole page out already, and so it's on an 11 by 17 sheet, and I've got it planned for 3 panels here, and they sit on top of this one, over top that you guys can see his ear peeking between the 2 panels here, and then this. And there's going to be a line here, but this imposes a shoulder over this seat, so it almost ties it into it, but keeps it distinctly separate from it. And so I started earlier today sitting down and working on the first half of it, and really feel made a lot of progress on that, and I just thought tonight I'd finish the other half of it, and that way, we got it all set up and finished in the morning, and there we go. Happy days. It's been a fairly good day, fairly productive day, and just thought we'd continue on with this. So what I'm using for this, I'll walk you through a couple things. For anybody that's watching this, is that you'll see some monkey business on the surface of some different pieces of information. And what these are is pieces of tissue paper and various papers. And so this is a folder that I have with all kinds of different paper in it. And so it's these pieces of tissue paper with patterns on it, or little piece of sheet music, and gold tissue and printed materials. And this is like a grass paper over here, and here's another packaged paper. All these different things. Craft paper are fantastic for applying to the surface and modifying the surface, in different ways. When you put tissue paper down on the surface, what it can do is, what it can do for you is give you interesting complexities on the surface. It can give you little steps in as the pieces of paper are adhered over top of one another, and you rub the pencil over top of them, you will get really fun and interesting lines that develop through it. And I look for those things. I look for those opportunities. And whether it's an image that's this big or it's a really large image, I'll do this modifying of the surface. Because for me, my problem was always sitting down and working on a blank surface. I found that daunting. And so I started figuring out, well, if I make a mess of the surface in the first place, whether it's gesso and just scribble on it with a pencil, whatever it is, now I've broken through that concern. And so from that perspective, it liberated me to just work and to not be concerned about making a mess of things. Because honestly, you're starting from a position or you've made a mess. And I'm good like that, that whatever little psychological things that we need to do for ourselves in order to allow us to do the things that we want to pursue creatively, it's helpful to find those little mechanisms to let you move forward and to let you do the things that you're trying to do, and to create the images that you're trying to do, illustrate the stories, to communicate the ideas and messages that as a creative individual you're trying to get out of you and to the recipient, to the audience. So whether anybody joins me tonight or not, or if anybody does join, you feel like saying hi or whatever, you're more than welcome to do so. But what I'm going to do is continue to plug along on this. And so a couple things. What I want to do here on the image is I want to cut this panel. And I know it's, cut the panel. Yeah. What I'm referring to is that I want to bring this panel to a conclusion right here. And so that this frames this image with these two guys here. But it also, because of, and I don't have to put a line down there because there already is a stop point. But what this does is it allows areas here for text to be laid in. There's area here for text to go in, whether it's a narrative voice or a title piece, or it's bits of dialogue that traces back to the principal character that I'm using here to give the reader some perspective on this village meeting that goes wrong. I tend to do silly things in the stuff that I write and illustrate. The one-page stories that I do on a regular basis, I tend to have a little bit of fun with not being too uptight about having to have these big message, deep, resonating, intentional, thought-provoking moments. I do have moments where I'm serious, but for the most part, I like levity, and I like to introduce levity. So if the camera's picking up here, it is. You can see there's texture lines that are coming through here, little rippling lines from the tissue paper, and the edge lines from the extent of the paper as well is being picked up by the pencil crayon. I'm going over really lightly, but I'm pulling those textures out. In addition to that, some of the gestural lines that are in there from when I would go over it in whether it's the matte medium or whether it's the gesso that I was applying to the surface, has left these little lines here, these groove lines that are very tight. When I scan it for the final, finish on the page to be done digitally, those will really pick up. Those are the things I'm looking for. Those are the fun potential opportunities that present themselves that are going to sort of speak out in the page, in the illustration. So that's the stuff that separates it from just being a straightforward black and white drawing, or just straight black inks, or a lot of the digital inks that we see today that have this friscolating value. I'll try to implement strategies like spattering in here. Now let me see if I can, I'll try to pull in, and I'm going to pull the camera up here, and so that some of these details that I'm talking about in the top part of the page, we're going to just see if we can get there. You can see as it's trying to focus in on this stuff that there's this little white spattering and this white and black lines that are rippling through. And you can see that it corresponds to some of different tissue papers and different papers that were placed down on that surface. So it's those things, illustrating this one-page story. It's these things that I'm looking for. These avenues of opportunity to just have a little more interesting developments in the compositions. I have no real hangups about. I'll pull back out again so we can get down to it. I have no real hangups about the what's the tissue paper? Does the musical notes signify anything, or is there something to be said with the paisley patterns, or none of that? Implicitly means anything. What it really is just there's little visual complexities to these pieces of paper and these patterns, and what they allow when implemented into the page is just to have a little something interesting for the eye to move around with. So oftentimes I'll wash them out. Now, whether it's with the gesso that I start with, and it's just a white gesso, nothing too elaborate or expensive, and so I'll just come in and run some of that through in the composition. So like there's this pattern here, that's a piece of tissue paper, and I'll just lightly brush over and mute it down. But when scanned, it's going to pick up this surface change. And with the inks and with the washing through of values, when I come back through and I start applying some gesso like this, it sort of brings back that white back up again, but it also leaves in my head interesting lines and some of those painterly approaches that you utilize where you're doing very light and gentle hash strokes, like if you look at classical painting styles. Fortunately, a lot of this AI stuff is utilizing old painting techniques to make it look like this fantastic image of a person, or whatever they're doing, or the beautiful repose that a man or a lady might have, are done in these traditional styles, and it's trying to emulate little motions like cross strokes that just do nice blending without it being a solid blend, smooth transitional blend, but just a breakdown of the scale from one place to another. So what I like to do is to sort of take whatever this base value is, in this case it's the white, and just sort of come through, and so it mutes down some of that information, but it doesn't make it completely disappear. You can still see it's peeking through, and then you still get all the ripples and the edges of the paper that are feeding through there, and that I like. So, but I'm at the point now where, see, this is picking up some of the ink here that has been put down in this area. So I'm just going to thin that out, and I'll come back in and throw some white over top of that. But right now it's fine where it is. So yeah, that's where I'm going with that. And then up in the ceiling area, I'm just going to come in lightly and do the same thing, the ceiling of this room. And this is going to disappear anyways. Now, what I mean by going to disappear anyways is I'm going to go over this and, hash the lines one way or another to suggest that the ceiling moves at an angle in an opposite direction from the way it's moving up the wall. But when I sit down to put the text, to put the dialogue on the page, I'm going over this area. Like some of these spaces here, while there is information there, it's relatively unimportant information. Sure, it sets the scene, but it has nothing more than that to it. So I can feel comfortable about utilizing this area for dialogue because I'm not going to be covering up anything important that can't be lost. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and put fancy stained glass windows in all the windows and all the window panes here, and spend some time developing all this really fantastic, intricate areas in the image, only to go and cover it up with dialogue. You sort of got to make a measured decision on what is necessary and what isn't to have here. But when putting together your image that you're telling your story through, you want to put down a compelling image, but you also want to have it be facilitative for you to tell your story, because more than fancy art, more than super cool, mind-blowing awesomeness that you're going to put in whatever it is you're working on, you're telling a story. You're a storyteller. And so what the principal thing of interest here is the people gathered and how it draws the viewer's attention across here. And the lines tend to lead towards this little boy. And, now visually, that's all I'm giving you with the little boy, because as I've shown you throughout, I don't keep coming back to focus on the child. But by just having this draw arrow, this sort of arrow of action that leads you to this stop point of grandpa and boy, and then it carries you right over into what is basically our protagonist or our viewpoint, the person that we're viewing the story through their lens. It sort of works in a double way like that. I can't say that there's some grand plan of breaking down all kinds of designs for the page in advance. It just, after drawing X amount of pages, you just sort of come to those ideas and those decisions. I haven't been paying attention to chat at all, and I apologize for that if you've been waiting. But hiya, Paul. Welcome aboard. I'm so sorry. Okay, so there. Welcome aboard. Hey, look, it's a nighttime stream. Who does that? Not this guy. But here we are. So just sort of walking through the process of making this page and utilizing some mixing of media here to tell this story. So I'm going to let these spots that I've just put value down on dry before I come back in and do something with the ceiling. But in the meantime, I have got this black pencil crayon that I'm using to be our principal value that we're putting down. Oh yeah, welcome aboard, Salty. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I'm sorry, again, I apologize if I wasn't paying enough attention to people joining in there. Not that I really expect people to come on out and what's that crazy person doing? So, okay, so we've got, this is tamped down a little bit. I'll come back in and touch this point here because of that gray. I want that to disappear and flatten out into the white again. And then this is nice and tamped down in value, so that's enough for me to move forward. This is our line from here down that breaks and ends that panel. Now, when I scan it and put it in the computer, I will box this panel image with a frame in the Photoshop, and then I'll cut away this part of it here. so that I'll lay it over top the box and then let this sit over top of that, so that the panel, this breaks out of the panel, but at the same time, these two characters are included in it. And, you know, and there's a reference of them to this scene. Whether they're actually standing in the spot that they are or not, it's up to you. Paul says, I'm wondering why I'm awake, but glad to catch you. Nice panel. Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah, you've got some weird hours lately, buddy. Okay, so I'm going to move this over so that you can see a little more of what's going on. So we started here, and we're moving our way across. Now we're doing it with the same method as we come across the page. And so some of the tools that I'm utilizing, I've got this toothbrush that I flick some white ink and some black ink in order that I can get some of this really interesting spattering, this really light tonality applied, or as you see in here. So it starts, you know, now this has got pencil crayon, black watercolor wash, and then there's the flecking of black ink in there as well, that it gives it this sort of these textures, right? I'm using Posca pen, white Posca pen. I'll use at times. I've got this black pencil. I'll take the black Fudenosuke pen, and I'll make little accent points, like right here in the collar of this lady's outfit, and one beside her, little touch points, rather than complete lines that are moving throughout. I'm just emphasizing real contrast areas, and in that way, it gives it a closer sense of reality. Clearly, it's still illustration, you know, and clearly with illustration, it still has a great deal of a fair amount of abstraction. But if we can do those little high contrast marks that makes your eye connect to the fact that there's the deeper recess in the eye cavity or something like that, then that works. So now I've got the watercolor, like I mentioned, and all this is this watercolor set that I usually use on everything. I'm only touching this guy here, and then I've got a little bit of heavy body titanium white, for which has allowed me to do some real punches of white value. And then there's the Winsor & Newton white ink and Winsor & Newton black ink, and this is a waterproof ink once dry, so that you know, as I further along through it, I don't have to worry about going back and making a ruin of some of the things that I've already done, because they stay pretty solid like fast. So so this is the various tools. Oh, and I'm sorry, and I penciled everything in with this guy, and then I black lined everything with this guy. I put and I dropped it on the floor. I put the tissue paper in these areas and different papers down in these areas with a matte medium, and that I got here, and then flattened it all out and went over the matte medium with a light dusting of gesso through the whole surface. And in that way, when I do some watercolor over an area that's got matte medium, it's not going to work as a resist and not pick up any watercolor in that spot. So here we are now. So I think that I got a couple choices in front of me right now. One is to walk through like I did before with the black pencil crayon and pick and choose some tones and some differentiation. And then I'm going to come through with the black watercolor with the brush, and I'm going to push the black values, the deeper values, and you know, the shades, and right into the black. So, you know, and then after that, what I tend to do is come in with the white and start pulling sections back out, start pulling areas and marks back out. Like in this area here, there's points where I'm touching with the Posca pen to break these lines, and which, when from a little step back, when you look at the image, it's sort of what light does when it moves through hair, is that it sort of takes away the solidity and it puts a little translucence into the hair as the light shines through it. So, so now we're into our principal guy. Now, when I'm, make sure I'm not, yeah, just making sure I'm where you can see what I'm doing. So I'm not going to put a value into the background. I'm just going to leave that as white, and I will come through in this space and tamp that down like I just showed you over here and flatten this out a little bit. There's the information will still seep through, but it takes the clarity of it away, so it's not people trying to focus and see if those words have any deeper meaning. Like, for interest's sake, right here in this piece of paper that was there, for whatever reason, the word dark is right here. You're not going to see it because it's right here at the corner point of the stage area. You know, but it's in there. Okay, so yeah, so I've got all of this sort of worked out in my head in the penciling stage. So it's pretty straightforward as I come in now and color in these areas, really. I tend to leave the blacks, you know, like the shades and stuff. I tend to just do the drawing of the face as the line and then work it up from there. So, and the reason that I'll do that is that it lets me go through that process of putting the values, the shading, the values, and working up these different contours within the drawing all at the same time. It's not like I'm sitting here with all these flat blacks that I now have to work through and around. There's benefits to both. This is just the way that I feel comfortable to work. So, and not anything that I put down here, like I said earlier, I can push back with a white, whether it's the ink or whether it's the Posca paint marker. I'm not lockstepped in that any marker I put down here has to be perfect. I give myself the allowance to put down and pull off these values. During my afternoon streams, I've talked about a guy named Baron Story, and Barronstorey. If you have an opportunity to look into some of his theory, he taught at the Pratt Institute and the California Institute of Art for years. But look into some of his ideas about positive and negative mark making and how the choices that we make in the development of our compositions, or whatever the image is that we're putting together, are entirely ours. And if we choose to put something down and to wash over it with a value and then pull out parts of it that we want to emphasize again in another layer, that's up to us, right? At the end of the day, it's the finished image that the audience sees, the viewer sees. So I'm just utilizing these basic lines that I drew down earlier, and I'm putting together the drawing. Now, the emphasis point that I did of the, oh, I know what this is called, of the pursed area above the lip, it makes it look like a little bit like somebody from the 1940s that caused a lot of trouble. So this is an example of cutting that back. Now I can do it two ways right now because it's so just pencil. Is that I can come in with my little buddy Derwent here and soften those marks so that it doesn't look like he's got a crazy mustache right here. But just nobody grows anymore. you gotta have some effect on society when you can make people stop having a certain facial hairstyle. Also, nobody grows mustaches like Salvador Dali, so what do I know? Okay, so I'm going to do this point inside the collar. Now, even though I know that for this character, this shirt area is basically, black, I'm going to come back to that. What I would like to do, and I've done here in the other areas, is I'll put that watercolor down first. And then I'll put some texture over top of it with the pencil crayon. Then, for whatever reason, that sort of pulls out some interesting little textural bits. If I do it the other way around, it does as well. But just for some reason, I seem to find I like it to approach it that way. And now I'm putting in, so you can see optimally, and you'll see it far more clearly in once it's scanned. Some of the textures of where the gesso or the matte medium went down this way, and it left a little bit of grooving. And so because I'm very gently going over top of it, the pencil picks up the peaks and it leaves the valleys. So there's this black and white lining that's happening through there. So my intention here is to have this character wearing a cardigan, like I tend to find really comfortable in wearing. My wife picked me up one recently. I haven't been able to find one that fits in some time, but my wife found one for me recently, and I really treasure it and really appreciate that. Just the sweater that I feel most comfortable in. So just putting in some planes here of direction in the surface and keeping some interesting lines moving about as we build up his outfit. And this is similar to the same as I've done over here. If anybody's in the stream that, has any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask, or any comments. What are you doing? Hey, who would win in a fight? You know what I mean. I'm listening to songs from the 1980s. Boy, there's some real lemons in this time period, but there's a lot of fun songs. It's a lot of there's pop music and alternative music both in this playlist. So, I get Steve Perry, but I also get psychedelic first. Are you coming in? Corbin's joining me. He's going to come over and harass me in a minute. Okay, so just building up the information in this guy's sweater. And then I'm going to come in with a light watercolor wash and a heavier watercolor application here of the black. Just give a little something to it. Now, I'm going to do something where I'm going to cover this off in a minute with a piece of paper, and then we're going to put some of this little flicked on complexity with the toothbrush of some black and some white flecks of ink. So the shapes that I put in earlier, these light little gestural marks are informing me of how between that and having worn a sweater, how the folds of the sweater are moving around. Just making sure I'm not missing stuff. Anybody that might be first time joining in here, you're very welcome. 2 o'clock EST, 2 p.m. EST, Monday through Friday is when I tend to come through here and stream and work on whatever the page of the day is and whatever media I'm working on that page that day. So I have a thing where I encourage people, if you have an idea for a one-page story that you want to challenge me with, hit me. This is number 26 of the year so far. The suggestion was a village meeting gone wrong. And yesterday's was about a beeping. I can show you. Let's switch the camera really quick. Hey, Paul, before you go, this is the page from today. There you are, right there. 4th panel. Second panel down on the left side. There's Mr. Paul Pate. Push me this page. This is Paul and his smoke detector. Okay, so, and that was drawn, yesterday's page was drawn on a page that had ink dragged across it with no intention, just, really watered down ink and slapped across it. And then on top of that, in black ballpoint pen and white ballpoint pen, I drew yesterday's page. So different kind of application, but again, just telling some stories. Dozing off. That's very nice of you to say great stuff as well, by the way, Paul. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's very nice. Okay. And then we're going 38 minutes. Well, that's sort of let me get through the telling you what I'm doing and why, how. Now I can really get flying on the putting some marks down here. That's why I'm listening to Walking on Sunshine. Oh, yeah, you. Let's play with his mouse. Not a real mouse, mind you. Corbin is playing with a toy mouse. Now, I'm applying this pretty flat, but that's because I'm gonna, baby. Got a cover hanging over one of my chairs because my cat baby likes to climb everything with her claws. You can't go the easy way. You gotta go the hard way. So this is going to be, this area here is going to have a deeper application of watercolor. Push the shadows a lot with this. So as much as the sharp lines that were done in ink over the pencils really defines the form, I'm softening them up in the application of the pencil crayon, diffusing those sharp differences here. Softening that old fabric up from the sweater. And then when I come through with this watercolor wash in a second, it's going to tie that together. Now, this area here, this pants, is just going to be a solid black. So this is why there's nothing defined in this area, is because we're just going to push it out. I tend to think of light as pulling forward and dark as pushing backwards, or pushing away from the viewer. You know, light, raised surface, black, depth. Okay, so we're good. We can walk through and apply some watercolor to him. But I'm going to move into his friend here and we'll just do the two of them together. Before we push that in further though, I'm going to come in here with this gesso again. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to knock back this tissue paper that I applied here. I'm going to do so along, well, I could just do a whole area because it's going to be the same when I do the other panel. So I'll just bump it all back. You know, not so much that it makes the information from the tissue paper disappear, but again, I don't want it to be, that's not the focus of the image. So it really doesn't matter. So we can diffuse it, push it back a little bit. Okie dokie. You know, and I'm going to come back over here now and just throw some white over top of that grayed out area that I had over here on the side. I've just thrown down a layer on top of that just to push that back again. Because earlier when I did it, it picked up some ink and just smudged the gray through the section. So now we got some gesso on top of that, and I might go at it one more time. Riri's doing this. Hey, Riri. Oh, Lord. It's I'm keeping late night office hours. I appreciate people coming and hanging out. It's fun. I hope that some of my blathering here will be of interest or assistance to somebody in their creative journey. And so there again, we're diffusing some of the information that was presented in the papers that we put down, but they're still there, and they still have an impact on the image. You know, I can come in lightly here, very light brushing over this section here as well, just to sort of take it down a tiny bit to match the rest of the area so it doesn't stick out too far. And the rest of this I'll come at as we get over into those panels, because if I start putting gesso down here and then I got my hand rubbing through it, big mess, big old mess. Nobody needs that. Okay, so now I'm just doing emphasis points in his companion's outfit, and the reason for that is he's not wearing a sweater over top, so we're really just looking at the same heavy shadow areas that we're emphasizing only in his outfit. So that as we go through with our dark wash, it's going to emphasize those parts of it, and not it's not a black, it's not a solid dark black value. you see here, here, here. And in that way, it has a little more, something a little more interesting to it, a little more compelling about the marks made, ideally. And black pants, same as this bestie over here on the left. And we'll put some. Okay, so now we'll just define some of the shadows in his face based on, you know, what we've drawn down and the shapes and the planes of the face. So this is all just a regular old black pencil crayon. And so this is where these two panels peek over this image now. So that they're now floating over this image on this side, which is the same way as this image is floating over top of the first panel, but at the same time, it could be connected to it. So it allows continuity of the idea right through. I'm missing stuff. Oh, good evening. Hey, Linda. How do you know if you have a good storyline? That's a good question. So here's the suggestion comes at you, or well, comes at me, and whatever it is, and I'm going to try to fashion something kind of interesting to carry us along with the narrative, like yesterday's, or earlier today's page of the fire alarm in this household that doesn't stop going off. And so when the person finally does get up onto a ladder to change the batteries or to shut it off at the very least, the dilemma it presents is that it just won't turn off. You know, even if you got the batteries out of it, it seems to be doing its own thing. The story itself, sort of in my process of working, it comes along while I'm drawing up the page and while I'm carrying it on. I'm making little narrative decisions as I go in order to carry the narrative, carry the general idea forward. It's not that I'm operating without any kind of plan. It's just I'm at a stage where I can make quick intuitive turns left or right while I'm doing the story. Some are more successful than others. You know, some are less successful than others. The approach that I take, the different mediums and stuff, just sort of keeps it fresh. But what is it again? How do I know if I have a good storyline? I don't, because as much as I might think I do, and I might think that whatever the thing that I've executed is, and I feel like, oh, yeah, I like how that went. The majority of the people that might read what I've just completed might not get it. They might not connect to it. They might not see it as a successful thing. So whether or not I do, it still depends on the responsiveness of the person that reads it, you know, visually and textually. And then, of course, the tertiary part of that, which is the collaboration of the two. You can tell a story with pictures, and illustrating sequential work is primarily pictures. And you can tell a more complex story textually. You can lean into the writing because the art's not as strong. You can lean into the art because the writing's not as strong. Whatever your approach on that, just you're gonna do your best with what you got, and hope it comes across. more than that, I can't, I can't say, well, the way I make all my stories good is this way, because, I mean, the, like I say, the pages that I complete that I think are fantastic might not be the ones that other people like at all. There's certain pages that I'll finish and I'll go, yep, okay, that really is the thing I set out for it to be. Is might not come across. I might not get any response from people. I can show an example. So this is, I got two things I'll show you here. One is really, this will be really quick. I got right back to putting this watercolor down. I loaded my brush and then I decided to do this like a silly person that I am. Okay, and so this is two images that I'm opening now in Photoshop. Okay, so this is the mixed media surface of tissue paper and, a pattern paper. And this is on top of a piece of blue cardstock. And so this is the surface that I set up and I scanned it. It's just for whatever reason I was compelled to scan it before I modified it. And then the finished image with the text and everything else on it is this. And so while it takes an awful lot of creative leaps in order to finish the image, drawn primarily in ballpoint pen, but allowing some of the things, like just the interesting colors from the papers, to just peek right through, because I knew that this space was going to be used for the text to move through it. And there's already these interesting lines that are moving through in this sort of curve, the sweeping curve that it works with text applied. I really like this thing. And whether or not it gets some big response from people, I feel like this came together quite nicely. It's not a complex story. It's basically a person saying, oh, this terrible event that happened at the Coliseum where all the horses were running wild, no one is ever going to forget this. Of course, it's, whether that ever happened or not, we don't know. But we all forgot it. History moved on. It's a silly anecdotal bit, but I find this worked out well. I find that for myself, for my own aesthetic, I think it came together pretty good. And, I'm going to do something digitally on top of this scan surface as well. Hiya, Corbin. But in the meantime, I got something out of that image that, I feel like worked. Now, I can't remember any comments or anything that might have been made about that page. I tend not to overly focus on my value system based on what I'm doing being made by judges or judgment or response by others, just because I'm having fun and it's a journey and I'm going to continue doing things. But I don't know if it was any more successful than anything else. I just know that at the end of it all, I felt like I enjoyed where I went with it. So I'm just putting this gray wash through here. I'm just pulling all this down. And then I'm going to come back in again and with some white and pull some stuff up. Now, I'll show you something in a quick second here where there's different values going on through here, and it has something to do with matte medium and gesso that was applied to the surface in an area I might have missed. these fun little silly bits of business going on with the way I applied that watercolor in a really brutal way, just dragging it around. Just tidying that up a little bit. You use color and line work together. That's an attractive piece. Love the blues. Oh, thank you, Linda. That's very nice of you. I think that it's important to look at when we're creating an image, whatever different things that we're putting into that, whatever tools that we're pulling out of our bag in order to create that image. Color, line, the composition itself. What's the idea we're trying to get across? All those little factors we want to try to think of as best we can. And while we're creating our image to work for us. Okay, so, but thanks, that's really nice. Yeah, I try to engage. I always have paint and ink on my hands and ink from ballpoint pens because I'll turn the pen around as I'm drawing, and so it'll get this little dollop of ink off the tip of the pen so it doesn't smudge in your drawing. But I have this patina on my hand for a little while afterwards, depending on how much I'm drawing. Okay, so, all right. So I've got the sweater laid in on this guy, and we'll pull some more marks out of the surface in a little bit. We'll get going crazy with this sucker. And I'm going to come through here and put his pants in and put his buddy up in as well. Now, knowing that this page is, I'm not utilizing this bottom space of this page. I'm not overly concerned if I bleed over outside of this part of the image. Now, some people say, well, professionally you should. I'm about the finished storytelling part of it. I'm not. The finished artwork tends to go in a pile behind me. So you can see this gray, the deeper gray in this area here. What that is there's no gesso there. There's no matte medium there. That's the paper grabbing a hold of that gray watercolor wash as it goes down. Far better than the other surface around it. And it just gives a little interesting bit of hey now to the image. So I'm just going to put his shirt here and do my best to not go over into this panel, but you can see here that these two panels peek over this one. Baby is shouting at me down the hallway as she's bringing her toy to me. She brings her, you'll hear her wailing in a second. It's her way of telling me that it's my turn to babysit. She's going upstairs to lie down. Cats are ridiculous. If anybody has any other questions and stuff like that, please feel free to ask away. I was asked in a message the other day, why don't I just stick to one thing? was the actual question. And why do I use all the different things that I use? Because I'm having fun, and I really didn't have a more sophisticated answer than that for them. There's so many different things that we can do with different medium that why not play a little bit? Okay, so as this is drying, I'm gonna come in here and pull in a little more depth in certain areas here. Yeah, it's peeking through there. I look over at the cameras sometimes because with the light, in order to have the light over top of here so that I can stream this, it'll wash out what I'm doing sometimes, so I can't actually see how the application is going down sometimes. So I'm just doing little emphasis points here, and just to enhance little areas there in the shadow area, the shaded area of the sweater here. I appreciate people stopping in and hanging out. Those of you that jumping in the conversation, those of you watching, I appreciate that both. And I hope people are getting something from, whatever this old bag of coal is putting down for you. There we go. Giving more form, more shape to his fun time sweater. And I'm going to come through again in 1 second and get his really push that value of his clerical shirt underneath here. All right, that's enough of that. Bon Jovi. Oh, thank you. All right, so I'm coming through with this brush and going over this area again. Oops. And deepening up the clerical shirt he's got here. Now, when this dries, I'm going to come in through here with the black marker pen that I'm using and put little emphases around the edges of between the sweater and the shirt to just sort of reinforce and separate the two different garments. And then I'm going to come in with a pencil crayon as well and put a little more granular texture into this large area of the shirt. So, yeah. I'm just saying hi to Riri. It's nice people knowing each other and chatting with each other here and the interwebs. Little emphasis on some shadow here. Just to give it a little more a little more depth. Okay. I'll do the same thing here. Give this guy some of the highlights, some little emphasis here, certain spots and shadows. And we're going to come back in again with white and pull up again certain little spots. Pull those back up again. I also tend not to draw mouths as flat lines. I tend to try to push some little shapes in there. Move the eye around. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and build up a shirt. I'm a lot more comfortable in the studio right now. I got a new chair this week, hence no more squeaking. I hope for people in the stream. I recognize that could get pretty distracting. So this dark area right here is the lack of medium in that spot. So it's really grabbing a hold of the pigment and the watercolor as I'm putting it down. So maybe I have to reload the brush. And I'm going to do this in little sections so I can keep the consistency to the colors I'm putting it down. And then I'm going to come in again, pencil crayon, little texture, and some emphasis points with black marker pen. Not sure what they're called up at Denisuke pen. I call it by its name and people are like, what the heck is that going to say? It just, honestly, it's got a nice, it's easily the most interesting brush pen that I've ever used. If you're looking for a good inking pen, it works versatile. Versatility as a pen and as a brush tip, then that's the one for me. And it has a nice bend to it. There's a soft tip and a hard tip. It really, gives you a lot of versatility in the thickness of your line. If that's what you're pursuing. Tombow is the brand, or is the company that makes it. They're the same guys that make those thick black, long watercolor or water-based brush pens, brush markers as well. And just a good product, good company. This was not a paid endorsement. Doing this with a really thin brush because I like to make it interesting for myself. Oh, bye, Tyler. Anybody in the chat tell me what song Bonnie Tyler had a major hit with? Give you a clue. When I would listen to this as we were skating around and around at the roller skating rink here in London. Clammy hands holding on to person of interest to you as you're going around and around and around in circles listening to, you know, I remember her song being as the romantic song at the time. Clammy-handed teenagers. Okay, so here's these two characters here. I'm going to pop in with the Posca. Put some marks in here just to keep it interesting. What's up, bud? Here, I'll put your stool here. There's a good boy. He's settling in. He sits beside me in the studio. My cat Corbin. Baby is sleeping over there in the chair beside where my paintings are. And they keep an eye on the old man at night. First, they make sure Lori is settled in bed. It's a funny thing with our cat Baby does. She makes sure that Lori's settled and then comes and keeps an eye on me. Don't worry, Mom. I'll keep him out of trouble, she says. So I'm putting these buttons back in. What I'm doing with the tip of my finger is I'll put it down and then I'll just take it up just a tiny bit. No climbing. What are you talking? You're talking to me. Okay, so here we are so far. Here's where we've got the more finished first panel, and there'll be a crisp black line around that, here to here to here, over again to the priest, and now we've got the two priests coming in, and so I'm going to come in here now with just want to use up a little. There's a little bit of. I'm going to close the lid on this sucker and add some water to it, so don't want that bleeding all over the place. All right, so I've got these two Winsor Newton inks that I'm going to use in a second. But just before I do that, if I can find my sharpener, I'm going to just lightly brush over. Hey, stop hitting. Okay, I gotta. You done? No, Corbin's trying to climb onto the desk. He's a character. Yeah, what'd you do last night? I don't know. Christopher Runciman came and did a late stream. We watched him fend off his cat trying to climb all over him while he's supposed to be doing a drawing. That's weird, man. That guy's weird. I don't know. What was you drawing? I don't really know. So, I just coming in now with the pencil crayon deepens this area again, but it also gives a fun little texture to it, to the priestly robes, the priestly outfit he's got on here. And then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to come in here and go over this other, black area. Excuse me, turning it around for a second. The angle that I'm putting the marks in at is purely because it's just a comfort thing for drawing with my right hand here. So this little differentiation in the value here in his pants from the mixed surface, areas that have the paper exposed, so there's a deeper value in areas that have the medium or gesso on top of it, so it's a lighter value. That's fun. There's no real deeper, intention with that. So, where are we at? 9:15. We're making good progress, everybody. Good job. Okay, this is who I'm contending with this whole time. You done? Yeah, he puts his hand and he on my shoulder and hey, come over here. Hey. I require your attention, sir. Are you talking to me? Are you okay? Everything all right over there? That was the myriad of things going through the cat's head. So, I finally got. I'm finally comfortable with the lighting and the sound for the stream. Hopefully, it's picking me up okay tonight. I'm not talking very loud. I'm one floor removed from our bedroom. My wife's already settled in, so I'm not screaming and running in circles right now down here. Not this time. Okay. This is again another case where you can see crazy lines in the surface, and when I scan the page, they'll really pop up. And that is from what was there underneath as we put that tissue paper down in those early stages. Yeah, or there's different papers that we used. Anybody that might have joined late and didn't see the tissue paper, let me know and I'll pull it back out again. Okay, so good and good. Now that I've done that, I've got these guys. And what I'll do is I'll shake it up. Shake it up. I'm sitting in the cars right now, but different song. And the reason I shake it is that so it puts some pigment in the cap, the lid. And here comes the mess. So really gently, I'm putting some of these really tiny black dots into his sweater. These little flecks of little pieces of information, just this little granulation that just makes it a little more interesting. I'm going to load this up again. Yeah. So I'm pleased with the progress so far. It's I know that my processes might just seem protracted, for the outcome, but it's creating stuff is partially the exploration and the journey along the way. I wish that even best at focusing, unless I'm holding it like the 2.5 feet above the desk, it's not going to pick up on all the little tiny fine details there, but they'll come through in the scan. Okay, so now I'm gonna one more go, and then I'm gonna wash out the toothbrush and do the same thing, but with like a white. Okay, so clean this out. My crazy inked up finger now. So if anybody that's watching right now has ideas for story or 3-word prompts they ever want to throw at me, I'm always open to it. There's no part of me that is ever going to say, "Oh, yeah, no, thank you." I'm always open and keen to trying different things and telling different stories. And trying different approaches to layouts. This is a different approach to the day before it, so on and so forth. And always trying different within structure within the parameter of the landscape format in this regard. But at the same time, I've got pages that I've been drawing, in the portrait format. Tim Fraser on his, I put it in my stories today, but Tim Fraser was posting a couple of images today of stuff that I've done. One of them was punk rock, getting ready for a punk rock show. It was fun. Okay, so I don't want to be too crazy here, like I just was. Let's tamp it down just a tiny bit. Fun little cardigan texture. And then I'm going to come back in and cut some lines back out of it. So I'll leave that there for a second. And I'm going to come in already with the black marker pen. You settled? You settled? Okay, so now I'm going to put some of these emphasis points in here, like the eye, darken up certain areas that bring some attention there, and nostrils. Just keeping it interesting, keeping places for your attention to move around. A little bit of fun pieces of information, but really, really lightly applied. So hopefully that pulls the face right out of there. What in the world are you doing? Hey, settle down. We're going to come in here. Stop. There we go. It's kind of like seeing building it up this way it's almost like I'm looking for the end of the race at the start of it. Kind of got this idea of where the image is going to go, and it's just building up and building up towards that. Hey, cut that out. Bring me. And I'm going to come in again in a second with the white and do a couple of hits in his face here as well. It's, pushing it down and pulling it up, right? Yeah. See, this is a case where I can really see the black lines that I'm putting in more clearly in the camera than I can in person. In person, I was just sort of trusting that I'm putting marks in the right places. But there's fun things like this color blending into that color. That happens with our eyes in the real world, and There we go. I'll do the same for him. These small marks, those points of interest, those deep shadows. Okay, so I'm coming in now and putting those emphasis points with the white. Okay. Where are we at now? Anybody's got questions or? You draw like crazy person. Why do you do such things? Okay, now I'm going to put some little sharp points in their faces, you know, for the real reflective spots in their face with the raised areas. Just to give, like, there's no such thing, it's just this flat value that moves through a person's face. So if I can do simple, quick little touches of light areas, dark areas, I think your eye, the viewer's eye, fills in the rest of it. It's tricky because you just sort of have to trust the process, you know. Allow yourself to recognize that, you know, you just sort of got to allow yourself to make a line and walk away. Just, well, I don't think that went down. No. Just put it down and come back over and put that line back in a minute if you have to. But right now, put it down and walk away and then look at it again and go, oh, okay, yeah, that works. Because when you're second guessing while you're doing it, you're never going to allow yourself to just put it down and let it stand. I'm going to really thin line out there. That's not how you don't want that really thick line. That's why I thinned it out alongside. So I'm putting, again, little spots of light. And I'm going to do the same thing with the top of this fellow's noggin as I just did with his neck. And that is run the white along either side of this line to thin it right out. Because that is what light does. Now, abstractly, right? Like this isn't, you see other people that have these fantastic blended things and that works. It's the same thing, it's just a different language. This is putting white down and then dabbing it back a little bit to change how solid it is. Lighten it up in a spot. Don't want it really white and opaque there, but at the same time, we want to lighten that specific spot up. Whereas another place, I'll just put a white dab down. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So, yeah, so he's coming together. Do the same thing along his cheek, to the top of the head and the neck. And a little bit in the chin as well. So I'm going to kick a little more pigment into this old bad boy. What have I done? Okay, I touched buttons. All right, and then last little bits in the neck. Collar, the collar a little, something of more interest. I'm going to hit those buttons one more time. Just at the top, mind. Okay, so I'm going to cut into this panel. I'm going to diffuse this area up at the top just a little bit more again. And then I've got these three panels here to work through. Now I'm going to come back in once more with the black pencil and pull some more lines across here just to sort of build this up just a little more texture in it. And you know, for the kids, keep it interesting. Now these panels are stepping over this one. So one of the options that I can do to really emphasize that point is to allow, so I'm going to let this dry for a second, but along this line here, I can do a gray field like I've done here. And in order to really clearly separate this panel from this environment. But the black lines that I'm going to put over top of these three panels are going to do that separation as well. So I don't need to be too concerned about it. I do notice something that I mistakenly omitted though. And I want to fix that. So there's this little spot right here of gray that really isn't picking up. Anyway, but that's a continuation of this image again, separating the gutters between this and this. So I wanted to just touch on that again, and then I'm going to go hit that with pencil again to push that texture in there too. So I think that's really what I missed. Okay. So while I'm waiting to comment that and to figure out a choice for this background of this panel, I can come in to this face of, our character here and build this up and look for these complex shapes and shadows in his face and build this up a little bit. Using this guideline of the loosely dropped in line art. It's got this face of judgment here. The suggestion for this page is a village meeting gone wrong. So now so for those that have stuck around to watch this kind of thing I'm doing here, I'll walk you through my thoughts on this page, and that is that as the village has gathered in the meeting hall or church or whatever building it is, and our two characters are gathered here, the priest and the assistant priest, and he's making judgment on, these people here, look at them. I can't believe they brought that child in here, because the focus, everything draws towards this little boy. And so I think he's going to have a problem with this. And so while he's standing over to the side here, being Mr. Grumpy Guts, and, I'm going to have to win them over to my side of the argument by using my charisma and charm, well, what if they don't appreciate your charisma and charm, sir? And he says, what? Why wouldn't they? Oh, brother. So all these little narrative elements kind of come to mind for me while I'm drawing, and then inform the future panels as I draw them. Now, this mode of working doesn't work for everybody. A lot of people like to have fine panels, story, and script laid out in advance. This approach that I've been taking is really just going for it off the cuff, and that's how I'm turning out a page a day, because I'm not getting beleaguered in the process. There's no comparing one person's approach to another. It's whatever works for the individual that's creating. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. So, whatever way that I'm doing these one-page stories is what works for me, and the methods that I've put into place, and the decisions that I, generally make while I'm working. This is just, it's a lot of Carnegie Hall, right? Practice, practice, practice. But I'm always excited and interested in seeing how other people are doing story. And I also invite and encourage, if there's one-page story suggestions, ideas that have been suggested to me, or 3-word prompts or anything that anybody has seen and goes, well, I want to do my version of that. That's not how I do it. You are more than welcome to do so. There's no, this is my thing nonsense going on with me. I encourage other people to try this, and for other people to tell different iterations on the same idea, because it's not going to be the same as what I'm doing. And I can't do what you're doing. And the reason for that is that there's this whole complex amount of development and decisions and creative intuitions that everybody has that the next person beside them doesn't. And once you figure out, I think that once people figure that out in general, you're not the same as the person beside you. You have something completely different going on. You're offering different things to the world around you. You stop worrying about what's going on with, Corbin over here. Corbin draws something, and just go for it. And over time, our images will look more and more like the things that we had in our head that we were hoping they'd look like, as we practice and develop tools and skills to more clearly represent the thoughts we have in the old cabeza. Time. Time, repetition, practice, practice, practice. Never stop learning. I'm trying not to. So I'm just building up all these planes in our guy's face and trying to make sure he's somewhat reminiscent in his, to himself over here. I'm now listening to Duran Duran. Ah, the Yays. You gotta love them. Well, if you're old enough to have remembered them. Which I think most people that tune into my stream watch this old bobcat scribble on paper tend to be, 70s, 80s people. And earlier. 60s, 70s, 80s, I think, is the larger numbers for who's hanging out and having fun together. It's great. So I'm going to come through, put some emphasis on certain spots, and I'm going to come through again and de-emphasize certain spots with the white. So I got to, at this point, go, okay, back away. Back away. Go on to the next guy's face. Now, optimally, if you could just sit down and go through every one of his expressions and so that you can trust that these lines that you're putting down, these values that you're putting in his features are always going to be consistent, but you don't always have that ability to do so. In my case here, if I do that, I'm going to smudge the heck out of this picture by going like that a lot as I'm working in here, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the smaller images of the face do not need to be as complex as the larger images of the same face. Just the basic hits, right? Basic placement of shapes. If it was larger and more clear, you could really push the emphasis on it. But so another thing that I can do here, once I've scanned this and put it in Photoshop, is clean up these lines as well. And that's a blessing about working traditional and digital together, is that it affords me those chances to clean up in a far less involved way to clean up some of the marks I put down. Okay, so there's that top panel coming in with the pencil crayon. This is dried down some. So now comes the decision. And if anybody in the stream wants to put a vote in on the matter, they're welcome to do so. Do I do a light gray background similar to this for that panel in order to separate this plane right? This panel and the environment in it from this one. Bearing in mind that there's going to be a black border that goes around that panel that is going to clearly divide this from this. But the question sort of sits on whether it's more interesting to do the gray background. So if anybody has any opinion on that, you're welcome to share it. I am going to be cheeky and move into the next panel and build up this next expression. I'm just going to jump in on this section here in a second. So the next thing for me to do is to, once this is all completed, is to scan it and put it into the Photoshop program, and to then add the text and clean up the surface, like the separations around the panels, and nice black borders on the panels, and you know, all the little last beeps and bells and whistles, and then for its release. And I'm just thinking about the shapes in the face, right? So get his nostrils back in here. Uh-oh, eraser. Come on, Derwent, do your job.
I got this covered, don't worry about it. Let's see what happens here. Look at you there. Come on, back.
All right, that's Derwent. That's Derwent, ladies and gentlemen. New addition to our studio familia. That's French. I know it's not French. Don't. I'm just gonna say. I am, as we called us in the old country, a silly person. Trying to get a snooty, judgmental expression back in here. Trying to lighten those edges, soften those edges on some of these lines. And I've got to put these people in here as well. So you can see this paper that's here that's the line actually interferes with the line of the neck, but that's fun. I mean, there's some fun shape to that, like that I can get this little sharpness out of it. It's nice. I like those are the things I'm excited about and I'm looking forward to. If anybody has any questions or thoughts about the page, let me know. So I'm going to round his chin. So even though I don't have all these lines drawn in, we understand the face a little more as we go. So I got to come in with the watercolor to this nice little smooth pinches of value there. Cleaning that up. Get some of that hair in. And I'll do both of these guys' faces at the same time. And then that just leaves me the bottom panel. But before we do that, let's lightly so this pencil is that short. It really push. You really use a pencil right down to its nub. You got an entire drawer of just pencil nubs that I had to throw out because I just kept throwing them in the same spot, and I realized, oh my heavens, this is crazy looking. So in the case of these people, I don't have to put a lot of complex information in their expressions because the value push is behind them with the other people sitting behind them in the meeting hall. And I've shown there's 2 rows and more moving back, but that it sort of lets me not have to focus too much on all kinds of complexity in their expressions. Okay, so watercolor. So we get these through. I think I'm going to put this gray in that top panel first. And what I'm going to do is so and it's going to pull out all kinds of these cool lines, these little peaks and valleys off the tissue paper that's in all kinds of neat textures. Now, I turned the pencil around in my hand to keep, from a big, flat, dull edge on the pencil. I want, a little more line, a little more sharpness on the edge. So I'll roll it around in my hand as I'm drawing. See, there's the stuff that I look for. I really like when the tissue paper presents itself. Like, even if we've lost all of that surface complexity of the patterns or whatever else, this is really how this, in my mind, the tissue paper really brings it home for itself by being incorporated in a page, is that when the pencil hits this edge, the lip of it, and it, you can see there's a piece of it down right here. But when the pencil hits the edge of it, and it just emphasizes that, clearly emphasizes that edge to it. I'm not going right to the edge of the face because I'm going to put a nice little contour white line around it. But again, here's where you can see some of the brush marks for putting in the medium and the gesso and contouring around the faces a little bit. This is why we drew it down first, is that we can have these contours lines from going around our existing drawing. I'm holding this ruler here just to not bump past this edge. Just cleaning up the value, trying to keep it somewhat consistent. So again, as interesting as some of this might be, the text is going to cover it. You know, but not all of it. There's some of it's going to peek through. Okay, so same thing here. And cleaning up these lines in this panel, and then this way, none of these marks are going to go leaking over into other areas of the drawing. And we're going to do the same, and same pressure, so the same color, the same tone of marks that we're putting down here as we did the last one. And I'm going to come in with that white, and the watercolor washes in first. And at the end, when I come in with that white and do the contour line around the priest, it's going to make him pop out. But it's also going to let us push into the hair and you know, clean this up a little bit. But it just makes it a little more interesting as a panel. And it clearly separates this from this. Okay, so and then I've got one more little bit of business here, and I'll finish the last panel and hullabaloo. This is some of the intricate details in the ceiling here. There we go. Pull those lines together there. And then there's the fancy ceiling of the church or meeting hall, whatever the building is. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with this skinny old brush, and we're going to put some nice little emphasis shadows on the face. And we'll come in again with the white and put those hits of light. Just sort of ties it together.
I'm going to pull down some of the depth of that eyelash. It's just a bit much. Yeah. Linda says, so you use invisible textures to show movement. Yeah, it's kind of there's these fun lines in here drawing you around, and then of course the contour of the head throws you back this way. But the whole composition is to take you in this momentum. These little bits of under the surface marks can do great things for you, especially in a sort of subversive kind of a way. We might not as readers be entirely aware of some of the, again, I gotta pull this back down again. The pencil's too dark. We might not be aware that it's happening when we're looking at a piece, that our eyes are being pushed around a page, but you can use those little textures, those little directional lines that you work into your composition in order to direct where the story is going. That, and when you do this in combination with the text, and or if the text is down here and the title's up here, and the text moves us through the composition in such a way as it, it carries you around in the space. But you've already accounted for that in the drawing process by leaving these spaces. There's where text goes. There's where text goes. There's where you can put text. Here's some place for text. And not having everything being complicated allows the choices to present themselves to you. And it's a fusion of the two things, so it's important to be able to find that. It's important to be able to find that balance. And practice more and more over time, right? It just becomes, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to just put this item in here in order to move you across. There's certain people that have hard, fast rules about it, and they work for them. As far as for me, they don't work for me. And I find in the case of some of these people with these hard, fast rules is that you'll see a fair amount of repetition in their images from one to the next that they might not even be aware they're doing because of that hard, fast rule that they've got in place. But again, different stories, different folks. So, yeah, it's a great question, Linda. Okay, so get some lines in this fella. Realize that I didn't put his eyes in. Whoopsie. We don't need much on him. He's not the draw on the panel. He's the support. But we do need that dark value in that. Vestments, whatever you call them, that a priest wears. Or maybe vestments where they got the scarf and that on, the robe. Either way, we got some stuff in there for him. And I will do the same thing for this panel, and then we're going to come in with the white, and I'll finish on the bottom panel later. So the gist of this approach, the storytelling approach that I'm taking here is he's recognizing a problem that he has to face. And so my initial thought was, what about, he's actually anxious and nervous to talk to everybody. And, it's a village meeting gone wrong. And so here's his first time calling this meeting to attention. And I think that I'm going to have him, hey, all you dummies, just say the wrong thing right out the gate. And that's one idea that I had for the story, for the text of the page when I put it together. Another one is about this boy and to have a more serious bent about we're going to have to deal with this situation with this boy, or, it could end just as easily end with, if the grandfather and his grandson could please sit down in the front row, like just whatever it is. We get to make these little decisions as we go, because again, I'm not locked into this is how it has to go script. I've liberated myself from that by approaching this in a different way. Again, if the script works for you, do a script. If it works out for you to sit down and plot the text in advance, there is benefits to that. There's definitely benefits to that. See, I can get some sharp little hits of shadows here with the brush because it has a better control. Nice tight line at the tip here. And there we go for that one. And let's get their faces here and emphasize the. And then we're going to come in with, oh, you know what I didn't put in? Is this sweater. We'll fix this in a second. We will fix this in a second. Whether anybody else notices, I'll notice it. So using some washes to put some shape in the face, chin. And this is where this nice tight brush comes in. Quite handy. Again, we don't have to have all kinds of complicated mark making in this face because one, he's not the focus, and two, he's back a ways. Okay, so I'm going to come in with this gray here, this line right here, and this line right here, and see if I can pull some of this off. Yeah. Just taking some of that dark value out of the sweater there. Okay, now I'm going to come in with this mascara and clean up this contour line around our guy. And then I want some hits here of, yeah, we're going. Here we are. Just some fun little reflections of light in here. And I got to come in again as well with the marker pen. So here's where I'm taking the edge out of the hairline, moving it right into the space around it. Da-da, isn't she? Some marks there. Yeah, it's coming together. Pretty pleased with. And we'll put a little emphasis line around there. And then I wanted to do this at the chin. Is just push that chin a little bit more. Give it just a little more shape to it. And put another little shadow on the chin. Sorry if I'm quiet again and I'm in the zone. We'll come in a moment with our emphasis lines. There we go. And then the same down here with hitting the highlights where we need them here and there. Because there's more of an overall gray tone in this area, this is pretty flat up here. It's going to let us get a few nicer little emphasis points. It's fun to monkey around and finish this stuff at night. And I appreciate people coming and hanging out. So let's come in with this guy. Clearly define that line. Clean up the edge there too. And we'll do the same thing, cheeky little thing we did up there, and boss around his face. Now, where is? There he is, right in front of me, directly in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to come in. Whoa, that's a red one. That was close. Holy guacamole. And so this is where I'm doing the real bumps. And as soon as I can get these emphasis points in here, it's sort of going to push and sell the expression a little more clearly. I'll often drag a mark with my fingers, which leaves me with very dirty hands sometimes when I'm in the studio. Accentuate some of these lines. There we go. A couple more little marks in here. Move down to the bottom. And then same, we're going to punch those eyes. Punch them in the eyes. So hopefully that comes across for people. I don't run the entire continuous contour line around there. I just pick spots to put those lines in, and your eye fills in the rest. So. Trying to make this guy on the side and pop a little. And then there we go. So, okay, I just have the last panel to do, and then to scan it and to put it into the computer. And then we've got this long, running story that we can have move through the panel and through the page. Now, I can also decide if I choose to take these 3 panels and to put them below when I do the scanning part, and sort of leaving that opening for myself just gives me a little bit of play. And I think that's another one of the benefits of utilizing the mixed media, the digital application, is that it lets me go a little further with things and realign where the size of panels are and the placement of panels are. And, I can't say that I don't value that, because boy, do I ever. It lets me editorialize what I'm doing after I've completed all the visuals. It still lets me change things up for the better, get a better flow, get a better shape to the image and to the narrative in a total way that I might not have had otherwise. So, this generally wraps up the stream tonight. I thank everybody that came and hang out with me. But I'll finish this little panel in the morning when I do the scanning and the digital aspect of it. But which I might stream that in the morning. I don't know. But just taking people through the process of something like this. But I'm feeling pretty good about the image that we're crafting together here, and the narrative that's coming out of it. So I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out. I'll be back for sure 2 p.m. EST tomorrow afternoon. I'll probably be doing something first thing in the morning, but I may well stream that. I may well do that just for fun, just for something different, and show you the next part of things digitally and putting it together. Linda says, "Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Christopher, so much to learn." Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say. We're all learning. I'm still learning as I go too, but I like the idea of us all learning together. And if there's anything I got that I can pass on, by all means, of course I will. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks very much. Everybody have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.